Hey guys, so this question has been asked a whole bunch over Destiny's lifespan. A lot of people wondering about Destiny's future, what kind of subclasses are going to come, are we going to see new elements, are we going to see new classes in general? So a lot of people are wondering if we're ever going to see true tanks or true healers in Destiny, kind of like what you'd see in an MMO or other RPGs. Obviously, we don't have any idea about what the future holds for us in terms of that, but I'm here to speculate that the odds are pretty unlikely that we'll see any sort of dedicated healer or tank roles, and here's why. In other games and other MMOs, in the endgame, stuff like raids have a lot of people in them. 15, 20, 25, in the past you'd have 40 or 50. If you just had everyone be a damage dealer, it would be mayhem all the time. It would be very difficult to have mechanics in a fight of all damage dealers, especially if they are unable to heal themselves. So you have roles in those games to make things more organized, more defined. That allows developers to come up with more interesting activities. Now you might be thinking, well, Destiny has all damage dealers and Bungie is able to do really good raid bosses. And that is true, but we also regenerate our health after a short time. So we have the damage dealing and the healing, which means Bungie is still pretty flexible in being able to design fun encounters. There is rarely a time what we would consider a tank in Destiny. You could argue that in Vault of Glass, the tank was the person with the relic because they could provide shields, and the bosses in there typically aimed for that shield. During Golgoroth, tanks exist via taunting, but it's possible to prevent all damage being dealt to you, and even if you're hit, you can just regen your health without the need of a healer. So we could have tanking in Destiny, but it has to be artificial tanking roles that are generated by mechanics, as opposed to tanks existing and dictating which mechanics can be introduced. So why do I think we will never have true tanks and healers in Destiny? Well, there are a couple of reasons. The first reason is accessibility. Raids only have room for 6 people. That's nothing compared to the 20 to 25 you'd see in MMOs. In MMOs, it's not unreasonable to have a couple of tanks, a few healers, and the rest damage dealers. It's pretty ingrained in the genre already that you're going to have those roles. So now imagine in Destiny that you needed a tank and you needed a healer and the rest could be whatever they want. What if for a fight you needed an off tank? That's 2 tanks you need, 1 healer and 3 damage dealers. Introducing roles like that into Destiny probably spreads things too thin. One of Bungie's philosophies appears to be that the raid and every other activity in the game should be able to be completed by any group composition. 6 Warlocks, you're fine. 3 Hunters, 3 Titans, go for it. They don't appear to want to require any specific role in the raid because that means it's more difficult to get groups together. That means the game is less accessible. The second reason is because Bungie appears to be very committed to keeping Destiny a shooter first and an RPG second. If you start to introduce these roles, you start to stray away from the shooting portion and go into more RPG-focused roles. How would a healer heal in Destiny? In an RPG, the healer is the healer. That's all they typically do because it requires their attention all the time. The tank takes a lot of damage, the DPS takes occasional damage, so it's a full-time gig. Would the healer keep shooting? How often would they need to heal? If it's all the time, then you take away the shooting portion, and that goes against the philosophy of shooter first. If it's only every once in a while, why even bother having the role in the first place? If the healer is only able to heal once every 30 seconds or so, that really doesn't make you much of a healer, just a guy with 1 healing ability. Not to mention that I would imagine it would be incredibly annoying to deal with healing in the Crucible beyond what we have right now. Health regen is already really quick, not really requiring healing. If there is ever a time where you could actually use healing, you'll either regenerate it by the time a healer finds you, since current boss arenas are pretty big and have line of sight issues, or you'd just be better off being a healer yourself so you can instantly react to needing a heal. The tank, on the other hand, would probably be able to tank because their aggro mechanic would be tied to shooting the target. But how would the tank stay alive if they're supposed to hold the boss's attention the entire time? Dodging? Running around? How's that any different to what we do now? The boss picks a target and you gotta deal with the boss until they pick someone else to shoot at. It's fine if you want to give the tank abilities, but are they going to replace the grenade and melee? Would you add more stuff on top of those? Would they get more health than other players by a significant margin to make up for all the damage they would take? If you manage to answer some of these questions, you either stray away from point number 1 or point number 2, accessibility or keeping Destiny a shooter, or otherwise end up creating some sort of imbalance. Basically, the more you start to drift towards having those kinds of roles in Destiny, the more you start drifting away from having it be a shooter first. I think mechanics that generate a tank role as opposed to the tank role generating mechanics is going to be the future with Destiny as we've experienced. If and when there's a Cabal raid, maybe look out for someone being able to pick up a Phalanx shield and using that to deflect damage away from themselves. That's a tank role generated by a mechanic, but you don't need any particular class to do it. It can be anyone, and that's one of the philosophies: accessibility. All of this isn't to say that it could never happen, because the possibility is there. I just don't expect it to happen because of how radically the game would seem like it would need to be changed in order to accommodate those roles. Linked in the description is a Reddit thread I found interesting that sort of deals with roles in Destiny. Instead of exact roles, the discussion is more about utilizing the characteristics of the classes in story missions, which I thought was a pretty interesting concept. Those are some brief thoughts on why I don't think we'll see healers or tanks in Destiny anytime soon, inspired by a recent World of Warcraft stream that I did. Anyway guys, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.